Hi everyone, my name is Javi and I can draw, and this week, well, since it's the week of Christmas, there's not a lot of work going on and I'm just getting a little bit lazy because I have to do a lot of family things, but still I want to finish this whole character design things that I've been doing for the last few weeks, and I want to focus on faces and hair. So today, faces. Now there is a really well-known thing called the same face syndrome. A lot of artists have it, and a lot of artists try to avoid it, and it is when you draw a character in, well, or you draw all the characters and they all have the same face. It gets a little bit boring. It's like everyone notices it, you notice it, you don't like it, you don't know how to solve it. It often happens when you try to be super realistic with your characters, so you try to take care of the proportions, but the proportions you use with all characters are the same proportions, so they all end up looking the same except for, like, you know, haircut or something like that. Or even if you are like super cartoony, if you consider, like, if you ever seen Saint Seiya, you know that Seiya has a face, and then you see BTX that is by the same creator and it has the same face as Seiya, and it's like, it's a bit disappointing. So I want to focus on not doing that. So if you look at the screen, I have a few steps that I take when I try to do this, when I try to design faces for my characters in order not to end up doing this. Ironically, most of the time I have to do children's books illustration, and I do kids, and they all kind of have the same face proportions, and, well, it happens to me too. But I have these 3 steps that I wrote there up top on the screen. Oh, let's just do this. There you go. And the first thing that I focus is on the shape of the head. The shape of the head is what is going to define the rest of the head. If you think in terms of character design that we talked about last time on the last few videos, it has to do also with this silhouette and being able to identify the character just by looking at the silhouette of the character. If all the characters have the same silhouette of the face, it all becomes a little more complicated. So the more, I don't want to say exaggerated, but the more notorious that you can make the face of a character look, or the more characteristic, the easier it will become to design that face. So I added, you know, all the circles. I wanted to show you the circles. They are all the same circle, copied and pasted. I added just this. You see that I did the face of a different type of jaws to define different type of faces. And the second thing I do when I do these faces is try to focus on a certain feature. Like, you're going to look at a character and you're going to see, like, if it's a very pretty girl, you're probably going to look at the girl's eyes. If it's like, I don't know, some dude with a really big mouth or a really big nose, you're going to look at it and make it, you know, is going to be the focal point of the face and the characteristic feature that is going to define the face of this character. And so I want to do a few examples here. I'm going to do them really quick. So this is going to be some pretty girl. So yeah, she's going to have some big eyes. Now this guy has a really big, like, Superman-like jaw, and I want him to have, like, really big lips. So I want to focus on the lips. And I'm doing this because once I decide what is going to be the focal feature of the face of the character, the rest of the character is going to be a little more easier because you start working on, well, the third point, that is relative proportions. You kind of know the proportions and the distances between the features of the faces, but now that you're exaggerating certain features, you're still going to try to respect that as the most as possible, because if not, it will still look kind of silly, and you don't want that. You don't want the design of a face to be distracting, but you want it to make sense within the style that you're using. So let's keep going. I like, well, the face of the nose of this guy is going to be like this huge nose here, so I want to draw the nose first and then go from there. And I'm just being super sketchy on purpose because I don't want to waste a lot of your time. So this guy is going to have this big round nose. And remember when we were talking about character design, that we're talking about angular versus round, that usually round shapes mean friendly or good, and more angular shapes may be like, well, more edgy or more evil, or at least suspicious or something. That, you know, the more round you keep the proportions of a face, the better, you're going to have like this intensity, the idea that this person is good. If you see like Disney princesses, they all have really round, pretty faces, except maybe the case of Megara in Hercules, but she's not as good as she seems. And that is also displayed on the shapes and the angles of her facial features. So this guy is, well, just for killings, he's going to have this really small nose right here. And this guy, I have no clue, but let's just give him a wide kind of a nose. Okay, so now I see that I was a little bit too busy talking and I started with the nose on most of them, which is something that I usually do for my characters. But even then, like this character here, for example, he could have like really big eyes or he could have like really small eyes. And he's still going to be looking at his nose. In this particular case, like this guy, maybe the jaw is going to be the most prominent thing because everything else is going to be small. Like if you think about the Justice League Superman, like the cartoon, he has this big jaw and that is the focal point of his face. And you can do the same thing, like maybe the focal point is going to just be the shape of his face. And this guy, I have no clue what I'm doing with this guy, but I didn't want to do just 5. Okay, so now let's get drawing a bit. So I have the eyes of this girl. Well, let's just correct this just a bit. I'm going to do this tiny pretty nose here for the girl. Okay, so I'm just going to be drawing a bit. But you kind of know this part, right? Like you just have to respect the proportions, like even well, let's just use for example this girl that I'm drawing right now. Even though her eyes are super big and her nose is really small, you still have these laws, like for example the eyes have to start where the nose ends, and also that the mouth is going to be pretty much in the middle of the eye, and you can respect that. You can deviate a bit from it, but as long as you kind of respect them, well, you're still good. So this guy here has this huge mouth here, and let's just big wide nose. It's like even though I already did this, the focal point is still this big mouth and the wide jaw. I'm just going to have the ears here. But this guy has like it has this really long nose, maybe not a wide nose, maybe for the proportion of his face the nose is a bit wide. Maybe I can just make his eyes a little bit like tall like this as well. So you have to play a little bit with proportions. And also, one thing that you can do is like if you're designing a character, you kind of know what is going to be the main gesture of the character. Like if it's going to be a bad character, he's going to be having like an evil grin or something like that. So maybe you can just start designing the shapes of the faces and the proportion of the character based on that grin that the evil character is going to have. For example, you don't have to just try to design the relaxed face, but you can just go to the main gesture and see what happens. I will have to try that as well and see what goes on. Well, so this guy is really friendly. Okay, I'm going to shut up for a second and just draw and see what comes up. Okay, I'm done. These are 6 very different, very distinct faces that can belong to very different persons with very different personalities, and you just had to obey those 3 rules that I said. Let's just go through them again. are, well, head shape. Then pick a particular focus feature, and then just try to keep the proportions kinda right, kinda around the place. There's not much to say about it. Now, the next thing about this is like, you like one of these faces, you have to start trying different expressions on the faces, and then you have to start trying different angles for the faces, and sometimes it might mean that after drawing them a lot of times, you're going to start changing things that you changed from the beginning, maybe because you don't feel comfortable with the proportions that you gave the character, or maybe because you're just more comfortable drawing this character in one way and not the original way that you did. This is just doing character studies, it is normal, it can happen. The only thing that you have to make sure is that you don't fall on the same proportions that you try to avoid at the beginning, you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean. So this is very simple, very quick. This is going to be it for today. Tomorrow I'm going to focus on the hair for these people. That is why I didn't do any hair on them. That's going to be it for today. My name is Javi and I can draw. I am sure that you can draw too, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!